In Germany, disarmament was not on the agenda. In 1933, the German people brought in a new chancellor, Adolf Hitler. He condemned the Treaty of Versailles and promised Germans renewed honor and power. In Munich, thousands cheered their new leader. Among them was Karl Nagerl.
I stood in the crowd as Hitler drove past. When he saluted us, we hailed him and shouted. Hitler tried to remove the burdens that the Treaty of Versailles had imposed on Germany. Hitler promised work and bread for all Germans. He promised to eliminate the high unemployment. He promised to make Germany a nation that could show its face in Europe.
The Italians, also dissatisfied with their place in the world, were given the same assurances by their new leader, Benito Mussolini, who promised them a new Roman Empire. Millions of Italians rejoiced in Italy's newfound pride and productivity, the seeming miracle of fascism. Then in 1935, Mussolini began his quest for empire. Italian forces invaded Ethiopia. Ethiopia's emperor called on the League of Nations to intervene. It would be the first critical test of the League's authority.
Today, Haile Selassie comes to plead for his lost empire. He wants them to make Mussolini give up Ethiopia.
It was just the kind of dispute the League was created to resolve. Conflict between a strong nation and a weak one. Selassie's admonition to the West went unheeded. The League lacked the will to act. The failure to save Ethiopia came just as the League moved into new headquarters, a monument to the dream of Woodrow Wilson. The magnificent building was said to be designed for peacemaking, but even while it was being built, the League's ability to function as a useful international body was in grave doubt. The League had been defied by Mussolini and by Japan, which had seized Manchuria in 1931. The United States still refused to join, and the dream of disarmament was all but forgotten.
At the new home of the League of Nations in Geneva, the chief news is of nations arming. It is announced that Britain will spend more on armaments. Why? Because the whole world is arming. Japan demands parity on the sea with Britain and the United States. She wishes to supplement her great military strength by greater sea power. Germany is building aeroplanes, commercial craft, but perhaps convertible. Her right to rearm is being tacitly recognized. Aeroplanes for Italy, thousands of them lined up in spectacular array. Mussolini has fostered an air force which challenges comparison with the finest in the world. France maintains her military strength, trains artillery, mechanizes her powerful army. France demands security and will not disarm. And Britain, long content with dominance on the sea, contemplates bigger estimates for all three services.
The cattle prowl and the coyotes howl out on that great divide.
Only the United States kept out of the new arms race. McKinley Wooden was now farming in Kansas.
I was in the feed and grain business long about that time. I handled a lot of livestock on the side. Had the best feedlot in the county. People thought that the world was at peace, and they was awful glad it was. We wasn't interested in any foreign countries at that time, mister. We was interested in our own selves and at home.
In Washington, Senator Gerald Nye spoke for the isolationists.
Americans want no more war. Most of all, they want no more participation in foreign wars. If another European war is to come, it is not going to be a simple matter for America to stay out of it. American commercial interests, selfish, greedy, sensing the opportunity for profit from war, would do as they have done in the past, if left to pursue their own course.
In Europe, the fear of a new war was growing all the time. Winston Churchill, then a political outsider, took part in a radio series about the causes of war.
I'm afraid that if you look intently at what is moving towards Great Britain, you will see that the only choice open is the old grim choice our forebears had to face, namely, whether we shall submit or whether we shall prepare. This truth may be unfashionable, unpalatable, no doubt unpopular, but is it the truth?
Others in Britain still clung to the idea of collective security through the League of Nations. They made a film shown in thousands of theaters.
£2,000 million a year spent on arms. I'd fight tomorrow if I thought a war would end war, but that's what they told my father in 1914, and we're no better off now.
When there's a quarrel between two people, the police are called in to settle it. Why can't the League of Nations be strong enough to settle disputes between two nations?
Permanent peace can be secured by discussion. I've no quarrel with Frenchmen or Germans or Russians or anybody else for that matter. So let's be sensible and work together for peace by reasoning.
Right to your MP.
Pacifists continued to promote their position as well. But adhering to pacifism became difficult for many in 1936. In Spain, fascist insurgents led by General Franco and backed by Hitler and Mussolini staged a ruthless assault against Spain's democratically elected government. American George Watt had to choose between fighting the spread of fascism and maintaining his pacifism.
Spain was the first place where people actually took up arms to defend themselves against fascism. And I felt I had to go to Spain to fight. And I had discussed it with my wife at the time. I was married. And she also agreed. Not that we were happy about it or she was happy about it, but we felt I just had to do it.
George Watt joined thousands of volunteers in the International Brigade to fight Franco.
Mussolini had marched into Ethiopia. Japan had already conquered Manchuria. And we became genuinely concerned that the idea of just pure pacifism or just pure peace, saying we will not fight in any war, no longer had validity, that what was at stake was the entire future of all of humanity.
Despite the zeal of the young volunteers, Spain's democratic government was defeated. General Franco joined the growing list of fascist rulers in Europe and Asia.
Since the Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919, there have been only a few really momentous days in the history of Europe. Today comes another such mighty moment, as Hitler's bomb bursting finally carries Nazi expansion across the borders of Germany into the land of his birth.
All the talk about the best way to avoid war was being silenced by Hitler's actions. Karl Nagerl had now joined the new German army.
I sat on my horse just short of the border. At 8 o'clock, the barrier went up. Our army band marched ahead with fife and drum. The Austrians stood in crowds beyond the border,